Structure builds spiritual strength. We're not in fifth dimensional density just yet. We're navigating the 3D and the 4D. So getting up, gratitude, meditation, calling in your guides, movement, physical exercise, setting your intentions, having practice and cultivating practice for yourself. All the energy that you put within your spiritual practices is energy that then comes back to you. And with structure, you become spiritually stronger. You build spiritual strength. Every morning you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to do my morning meditation. By you doing it, you're breaking through that barrier and you're becoming spiritually stronger.
And welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And welcoming to the podcast today is a incredible expression of another realization of a profound conscious collective. I don't even really want to define this incredible being. Althea Lucrezia, welcome to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thank you so much for having me. Very grateful to be here.
I'm really grateful to have you here. I would love you to just share a little bit about you and how you got to this. You're like a celebrity, in my opinion. I feel like I'm in the presence of it's on another level. So if you don't mind just giving the audience a little bit more about how you got to this incredible point where you're just like, a beam of energy.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So first of all, I just want to, share that anyone can really, do this. Anyone can tap into their gifts. Anyone can open up. Anyone can reach a point where they're vibrating at a very high baseline vibrational frequency. For me, my personal experience, I had quite a few different pivotal moments and points of realization within my life in this incarnation, let's put it that way. But let's just say that I had prophetic dreaming and I was already developing psychic gifts as a child. I was one of those kids that would see like shadows, and at 12 I got my first tarot deck, and then growing up I also learned that my mom also is psychic and my grandmother was also psychic. They never really did it for a living, but I do come from a long lineage of witches and psychic women. But again, like, psychic abilities, intuitions, channeling, connecting, it's everything is, it's like a muscle. The more you practice, the better you get at it. It's like a sport, like anything else. Some people are more predisposed to, let's say, play tennis or go swimming, for their body and however they're made. And it's the same with psychic abilities and your clairs and your intuition. So this is kind of like a general, understanding of how my gifts started coming about. But I did have quite intense experiences also growing up. I had an abduction back in like 2017, I think it was. Then I had quite a traumatic experience in 2019 as well. When I started getting past life recollection and memory recollection, I started seeing all my previous lifetimes in Atlantis and Lemuria. And I've been doing this type of energetic work for very long and for many different lifetimes.
Wow. Where do we start? My goodness. There's this level of amplitude that you're transmitting that is second to none. All my students, any of the OGs of the channel, will experience that and be very grateful to be in this present moment. So when you tuned into, do you have like what you would call a specific source of information or a specific teacher, guide, spirit that you like to work with, or you're very flexible?
Yes and no. So it depends. When I'm channeling on a collective level, I'll generally tune in higher versions of myself. So I've got a 9th dimensional Pleiadian version of myself, a 12th dimensional mantis being version of myself. So it's still me, but it's a version that is existing and operating on a different, on a multidimensional level. When I channel for clients, I will generally work with my team and their team. So it really depends. Sometimes I work a lot with Mary Magdalene. I work a lot with the Hindu deities. So again, like it really depends. I work with galactics and with ascended masters. And then, yeah, so I kind of like sort of open up, and then it's funny because then I'll get some beings that, you know, have been here before, that I've channeled before. And then sometimes there's completely new ones. But I would say that generally I channel from higher versions of myself.
Wow. And so when you channel, there's sort of like degrees of like this sort of amplitude that goes through the physical body. Do you sort of tend to measure that? Of course, you have your own vetting system. I assume everyone does in relation to what you're prepared to receive or not receive. And I think that's really interesting for the audience, because what is that? How do you discern or affirm what you're exposing or what you want to receive as a channel?
Well, I mean, your frequency will determine what comes through you. If you're operating from integrity, you know, if you're living in your truth, if you're channeling from the heart center, if your thoughts, actions, emotions, and words are all in alignment and you are embodying what you are preaching, then you don't really need to worry about much, because what you're going to channel is going to be of the highest alignment.
Wow, that's a first for me, because a lot of people tend to put this construct around a very fear-based, protection-based sort of like idea. And look, I'm not going to dismiss anyone's belief system, because over 30 years doing it myself, you tend to, people will come in with an assumption that they need to be very contracted and fear-based to make sure that they're not bringing in the wrong energy. And, you know, you and I both know this is, again, I mean, the definition was mind-blowing. It comes down to, well, it really does, because people need to hear how powerful that is. And if you resonate there, and how would you say that, well, the resonation is really, it comes, as you said, I mean, there was a lot, you put a lot of information in a very short space, but basically the thoughts, feelings, your emotions are a representation of where you're at in your state, and then resonating at a higher state, it sort of becomes sort of not even, it's not on the menu, because it doesn't bring itself in. Is that right? Would you say that's
Yeah.
correct?
So, yeah, I do want to also add that it is important to work with shielding your field, but you want to always be shielding out of love and never out of fear. So, because we're not operating fully at fifth dimensional density as of just yet, we still need to navigate the 3D and the 4D, where you will get interference of some level. So, if you've just started channeling, it is good to put protection and, you know, do your rituals and things like that. So, I would never say to someone, no, don't do it, you know. But as we mentioned, when you start operating at a certain baseline vibrational frequency, it's almost like you vibrating higher than you know, any psychic attack or anything that is of a low vibrational frequency can't get to you, sort of thing. And that happens when you are operating from a space of integrity. So thoughts, actions, emotions, and words are all in alignment. You're saying something, you're doing it. You know, you're living in your truth. You are preaching non-attachment, and you live in a space where you don't have any low vibrational frequency attachments. So, like, I just say that one because that's a big one. And boundaries as well is quite a big one. You know, your boundaries needs to be firm. If your boundaries aren't firm, then you cannot hold a collective container. So again, as a consequence, your channel can be distorted. You can have leakages in your field. So it's quite a broad topic to expand on.
Well, I think you really were very articulate, because, you know, it really comes down to you are me, I am you. And the real core understanding of this is all is one, one is all. These are all concepts to many people until otherwise noted. And that shift of consciousness comes with a verifiable sort of like visceral kinesthetic response that you use your physical body as a tuning fork. This goes beyond the thoughts and the words to actually what's being expressed. And, you know, it's almost like, you know, are you in my head, you know, speaking my language in another language? Yes. I mean, this is a sort of fundamental sort of understanding that I've been teaching people for a long time. And to hear you say it is so refreshing, because it really is important. It's really important. Someone to your level of mastery, it's important to understand, okay, what was the path and how did she get there? And so would you say that, because I mean, the concentrated point, like normally when you start off with a sort of method or a cultivation, which is the way I lead people, you have to work up to it. At this point, I mean, you could literally think it and you're already there, you're tuning everything in, and it's a concentrated density that comes with what you're doing. How long did it take you to master that state of consciousness?
So that's a good question. I mean, I can't really pinpoint an exact moment where, my channel like integrated. It's still integrating. And from what I've understood and downloaded, it's not even just one channel. Like even the channel operates on a multidimensional level. So when you're channeling, for the collective, it's one way. When you're channeling for the individual, it's another way. When you're channeling for yourself, it's a different channel. But I would say I mean, even if you go and look back at my YouTube videos back in 2017, when I first started putting out videos on light language, you can tell that it's different to what it is now. And I think again, like I said, it's like a muscle, with the self-love, the self-trust, the building up your confidence. I mean, I've got a classical training in Reiki. So I think the Reiki really assisted me a lot to have kind of like that basis and understanding of the universal energy. To an extent, the quantum realm, I see light language as almost like an upgrade and expansion from the Reiki itself, because it's not very different how they work. I just find light language more inclusive. There's a more kind of like a variety to it, if it makes sense. But what I can say, and this is also what I explain and I teach a lot to people, is that in the path of an energy worker or of someone who's doing what we do and is teaching and doing energy work and whatnot, there comes a point, a moment, and I can't pinpoint my exact one, but it's where I'm operating from now, where your heart chakra opens to such a level and degree that you go back into twin union with source consciousness and you start operating from a space of unconditional love. It's not about you anymore. It's about the collective. It's about the mission. A lot of people say that. They say, oh, it's the mission. That's what I want to do. But they're not really operating from that level. So for me, that would be the space where, a channel that is quite well integrated and embodied would have to be operating from.
Yeah, no, I fundamentally agree with you. I mean, it's sort of like you start with a baseline of love, and people tend to use that as the ultimate. Yet I use it as sort of like the jump off point, because love is subjective. Love could mean bunny rabbits and razor blades to one person and unicorns and rainbows to another, until they start resonating. And this is where we go back to everything's energy. It has a vibration, it has a frequency. And then if you're able to resonate the way you're able to resonate, you can hold that line and then open this space where this is this profound healing. Just like, you and I experiencing these amplitudes of energy as we're staying there. And, I would say that, do you notice this because of the resonance that you hold? That due to a duality, even though you're speaking from that love channel, and really when you're speaking of that, that's like a universal thing that is unlimited. When people they start with the idea of it, but it's more a hallmark version of that until otherwise noted. They need to expand enough to resonate high enough to realize what that really means. Do you notice the effects of a duality with this resonance, that there's a I always remind people there's a polarizing effect. As you step up that resonance and that frequency is getting higher and you hold it, there is an effect. You come in and people either are gravitated to you or they're repelled by the resonance, because all of a sudden they're starting to have to look at what you would call their stuff, because it's so polarizing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. And I'll give you a very practical example. Whenever I walk into a place, if there's a queue, generally the queue dissipates. As I get to where I need to get, whether it's the bank or whatnot, and I pay or I do what I need to do, I turn around and there's a huge queue behind me. People will either be attracted and come into my field without even realizing it, almost like a zombie mode, because they attracted to the frequency, or they will not be able to stay near me. They will literally I will literally repel them. So definitely, for sure. And it's quite entertaining once you see this at work, in a 3D construct. It's interesting to see how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, the human condition that we're all subject to, right? This 3D density that you speak of. It's like it's sort of like within Taoism, we just look at it as yin and yang. You're going for your journey up the mountain. And once you merge the two, you realize all things as one, which is the mother of all things, the Tao. And so, you know, I mean, it's like I get fascinated and excited when I have incredible conversations with amazing beings like yourself, because it's sort of it really is something where we're getting messages from all different expressions of consciousness that are really sort of speaking a very similar sort of message, which I think is really cool. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because there's the different kind of like philosophies and schools of thoughts and understanding, but we all speak the same language, even if the terminology is different, or the resonance with a particular ascended master is different, but in the end it all goes in the same direction.
And so let's give someone a little bit of schooling on light language university, because a lot of people speak on it, but they don't really have a deeper understanding. And there are variables. I've come across a lot of variables, and most light language sort of like masters that I've come across, they tend to have this. Okay, it's I can translate it, but it sounds like music to your ears. You hear it come out and you're like, I don't know what that means, but my heart is super open and I'm like buzzing like, a Christmas tree. And so is there a sort of like a filtered sort of version where you would translate it into English that someone could relate to? Or is it more at that very moment how it's expressed?
So it cannot be translated verbatim, so it can't be translated word by word. However, it can be infused with a particular intention. It can be infused with a particular frequency from specific galactic beings. There's so many different types of light language. There's more earth-based light language. There's more galactic-based light language. Light language is an expression of the soul, so it is filtered through the individual soul's consciousness, but at the same time, it is understood on a universal collective level because it works in the quantum realm, so beyond space and time. It activates and works directly on the DNA. It bypasses the conscious mind. So to me, light language is the new technology that is coming in to assist humanity in the ascension process and on a collective level. Having said that, it's yes, that's what they're saying me now. Just to add this, it's really important to understand that not everyone's light language will kind of like understand each other. Not everyone will resonate with the same light language. And going back to the integrity within the individual, what can happen is sometimes if there is trauma, or if the person that's channeling is not channeling from a space of non-attachment and integrity, then there can be distortion within the light language as well. So it can be expressed in many different ways. It can be sung, it can be written. With the gestures, for me, I see the geometry. It can be moved. You can move through light language. So it's really an incredibly versatile tool. And yeah, like I feel very blessed and grateful to actually be able to channel that. But again, like, if someone wants to channel light language, like, you can. It's not, you know what I mean? I think to an extent you need to have certain DNA codes that need to be activated on a galactic level. But yeah, I mean, when I started coming out of my light language in 2017, 2018, I think there were maybe like 10 light language channelers online. There's thousands now, tens of thousands maybe.
See how affected people are. You're infectious. I don't know. It's running throughout the internet, and that's really what we're speaking of. And that's why I do what I do, is to collectively raise consciousness. And I mean, it's profound conversations like the one we're having right now that someone will just watch it and go, "Whoa, I just had an epiphany. It just shifted," because it's impossible. What people need to understand from a DNA, you mentioned the DNA, from a DNA level, the energy that's being transmitted from you right now, you cannot not be altered. You're not the same. So experiencing this conversation will affect you in mental, emotional, physical, spiritual form. It's coming out some way. And so, you someone may think it's kind of benign and, oh, that was cool. I kind of felt a little fuzzy. And don't be surprised when you walk away from this conversation and all of a sudden you're having all these awakenings, or, what I would call breakings, where your emotions have really raised to the top, and that resonance has altered and opened an ability for you to truly, as my daughter would say, one of her favorite movies, let it go, like Elsa from Frozen, let
Uh,
it go, let it go. And I mean, that's really a healing moment. Like, if someone did nothing else than listen to how profound the information is that's coming from you, and then uh, amplifying that resonance, and then with that going, okay, what that's really strange. I walked away from this and I'm feeling like emotional, and I can't understand it. Well, this is the moment I'm letting you guys know that it's gonna happen. So now what do you want to do with that? Do you want to like stuff it down, or do you want to realize that this is a gift from the light language, from the universe, from the Tao, God, Buddha, whatever? You are getting this frequency, and it's an opportunity to shift and change. So when you I was going to say, there's like this degree. Have you ever measured yourself like brainwave wise when you're doing this stuff? Have you ever thought about that at any point? Because I mean,
no.
I can see quite clearly you're hitting, high gamma brainwaves. I mean, I do it myself. I get between 100 and 400 hertz, and it's like schwitzing. You're making it. She's making it look kind of like it's nothing, but in actuality, if we were to capture the very state of energy that's moving through you, it would be pretty epic what's going on in your physical body. And it's sort of like, as you open the channel more and more, it becomes just broader. But if we concentrated it for a moment, I mean, there is so much going on there, and profoundly high resonance. And so when you measure, and you haven't measured it, maybe someday if you ever head on over to Nevada and I'm out here in Las Vegas, I would love to
Oh,
measure.
actually, I'm going to be in LA in June and in San Diego as well.
You might have to do a little pilgrimage and
To
head on over
Vegas.
here. Yeah, because I mean the brainwave, not that it's a valid. I mean, I get this all the time. It's like I don't need science to tell me what I know. If I witness a physical healing, a manifestation, magic, which I teach people, it's right now. It's like I want to see physical flesh regenerate before my very eyes. That's what I call the wow factor. And this comes with this access point. So you do you feel like there's a certain different expression because you channel a lot of different energies? Are there different amplitudes, or is it kind of consistently the same? Would you say it
It's
varies?
interesting that you asked that, because a few years ago, I was actually told by my guides and higher versions of self that I had to actually put on some muscle on my upper part of the body. Like, I've always been quite tiny, like I've always been, healthy and exercising, but I was never someone who did like weights and shoulders. And they were like, no, 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 babe, like you're going to hold like a collective container when you're channeling. So it requires quite a certain degree of physical strength to it as well, because you're channeling through the heart and you're opening and you're holding this frequency of energy that's coming through you. So it was quite funny. They were like, you need to put on muscle mass if you want to, keep on evolving in this as well. I do find that again, it's different if I channel on a collective level, on an individual level with a client, when I channel in workshops. So when I channel live in workshops, the way it works is basically I'll be in the middle, I'll open channel, and then the frequency will run through me and the light. And then through that, I will anchor into everyone, which I put in a specific positioning around me. And that's kind of like how the light works and how it operates. And the way that I channel in workshops and the frequency that I bring through then is different to what I channel collectively, and also to what I channel individually. I would say that that's the highest vibrational frequency work that I do, would be when I'm doing like a workshop and I'm channeling for like, I don't know, maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 people or something like that. So it depends. So yeah, I think, does this answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, when I look at the subtleties, you got a lot of yang from a Taoist perspective, a lot of juice, and so you're very sensitive to the energetics, and that just comes from looking at your lung channel. And that is super crazy. I mean, I do that myself. And it's strange you mentioned that, because when I started this 30 years ago, I was like a 300-pound bodybuilder with 23-inch arms. And I was like, this is crazy. Yeah, I used to break like captain's chairs. And so the energy was moving through me. And so when you mentioned that, I had to downgrade. My teachers were like, you got to drop this. The fascia has to open up. It's about the muscle density. And even now, I haven't lifted in probably 15 years, and I still walk around, at like 270, and there's still like the muscle tissue is there. Sure, I can tune up the amount of body fat that I have, but it doesn't take much to keep it. And when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I got you. I got you, friend. I got you. I get what you're saying, because you have to be there to truly understand it. And this comes from experiential moments. And so did you have a specific moment that you can recall where this happened? Like you probably experienced this in reflection of your biological timeline. You're like, oh yeah, it was a progressive. Or is there a moment that you can remember like, holy crap, this hit me like a lightning bolt?
Yeah, I was on a live. I had about 200 to 300 people live on my Instagram channel. And I got the download as I was doing the live. They were like, this is going to expand more. Like, if you want to hold more container, this is what you need to do. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's a funny thing. I had a guy on the channel a little while, actually just 2 days ago, and he spent most of his life pursuing masters around the world that channel and sort of isolate sort of like superhuman stuff. So when we go into Taoism, we go deep into the architecture of cultivation. So it's really important to be able to transmute the electric from magnetic and move it around and then merge it together. And then from that, you can create, levitate, stop your heart, do all these crazy things that are kind of benign, really, telekinesis, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, now you could do it. Now what? Okay. And so sometimes people are like, okay, I got there and it wasn't what I expected. Whereas, what you're doing is this resonance that goes way beyond it. I find that wave of or light of energy is not even measured on electromagnetic spectrum, not within this realm. And so it's so powerful when it moves from a high, what we would consider a high dimension, to this 3D reality. It has such a profound effect on everyone around them. Do you sort of like, what would you say is the degree of difference from say what you're getting direct source light energy? Are there other filters that your guides have told you are the differences between them?
Sorry, I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, you get that direct source. So there's a direct source that I can identify with it. The audience can feel it right now. When you sort of enter more a three-dimensional space where things are far more dense, also there's an energetic component to the electromagnetic. Is there a variable that your guides have sort of said, okay, well, this is for this, or this is for that, or is it all sort of the same?
So I need to ground a lot more than your average person. That's always been my entire life. I would work very high up here. This is red to keep me grounded, literally, like function for why my hair is this color. And it's been like this in many lifetimes to assist me with the grounding, with the embodiment. And then I'll have moments, I'll have days where I literally feel like I just want to eat like potatoes and beetroot, because like that'll help me with the grounding. So I would say that your average person struggles to access up here. My system is the opposite. I need to work more on the grounding, the embodiment, and the being present, I navigate the 3D realm like any other person. My life is pretty much anchored a lot in my job and in what I do, and the people that I'm surrounded with are also operating at a very similar vibrational frequency. But I do also have friends who, they're just like normal people living their life, like they understand what I do and respect it. They don't necessarily like channel or are spiritual or things like that. But I would say that on average, most of my time is spent conversating or speaking or being in the presence of people that are in alignment with what I do, if it makes sense. Having said that, I don't have any problem going out for dinner with people who have no idea what my job is or what I do, and want to talk about the weather or, the most recent gossip, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, I would never judge. And I think everyone has their own free will and their own journey and whatnot. But if I do find myself in a conversation that isn't like stimulating or in alignment, then I'll just, divert my attention to something else.
You brought up a great point, the whole grounding aspect, because people want to get there. And, I found that myself, that was sort of like my gateway instantly was there, and so the grounding component, I think, is really important. When I do stuff with people, I'll lay down a wet towel on the floor and they step on top of that, because when you get an electric charge, it can be like the spark comes out and it's a problem. Now, the expansion of the energy that you have, I'm talking about a concentrated one that's more within the electromagnetic field on this plane. The stuff you're tapping into is all things. And so are you more cautionary with that energy, or there's no real need for it because of the resonance?
You mean when I channel?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to do group healings and group channeling and everything else. Is there any sort of need for any sort of cautionary, sort of like preliminary things that people might have to consider when they're experiencing a transmission from you?
Yeah. I mean, well, I'll call in gridding. I always call in gridding. I work with about 300 different beings just for my team, and then I'll call in gridding and beings from whoever I'm working with's team as well. It really depends. I mean, when I do, in-person work, like, yeah, people, they can be nauseated, they can burp, gag, cough, yawn, shake, cry. I mean, if you go on my YouTube channel, you'll see I have some clients that allowed me to film that are releasing shaking. There's a lot of somatic release, trauma release. So it really depends. Every individual is different. Everyone responds differently. For me, I will generally clear also burping, coughing, gagging, yawning. Sometimes I will tear up or I'll shake. It really depends. Like, my body becomes one big kind of like light body of chakra, and it sort of like creates this kind of like vortex of energy where stuff goes in and I clear it and then I send it up into the light and transmute it. So that's kind of like how I operate. The same if I go in public places. When I do grid work, I get sent in specific places. Like, I operate on the same level, but I do give a little bit of like, not really a warning, but I do say, listen, and then after the healing, what happens is you can be recalibrating, processing, things can come through in the astral. You might get triggered more easily. You might feel like you don't want to be around people. Generally, I say 3 weeks for full integration of everything when they come to me for energy work.
Well done. Yeah, I always give people like a 72-hour at least, realize that you're calibrating a different frequency. And normally I give them 72 hours. Don't get too overexcited about what happens. I mean, I can see a 3-week situation with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I generally say 3 days for physical things. So I work with 3. So I would say 3 days for physical things. So like, like maybe a little bit of dizziness or lightheaded or being a bit more tired, but 3 weeks for full integration of everything. Yeah.
Now, what is it? Without revealing the secret source, what do you have a sort of a practices of your own cultivation that you sort of use, or is just being the channel enough to regulate everything?
No, of course, I don't have secrets. I'm very open about everything that I do. All my knowledge, I'm very happy to share. This is what I'm here for. So I don't, I don't really hide anything ever. This is why I love doing these interviews, because I can speak about anything and everything. There's not really anything that is off limits. So for me, and this is what I teach to my clients as well, structure. Structure builds spiritual strength. We're not in fifth dimensional density just yet. We're navigating the 3D and the 4D. So getting up, gratitude, meditation, calling in your guides, movement, physical exercise, setting your intentions, having practice and cultivating practice for yourself. All the energy that you put within your spiritual practices is energy that then comes back to you. And with structure, you become spiritually stronger. You build spiritual strength. Every morning you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to do my morning meditation. By you doing it, you're breaking through that barrier and you're becoming spiritually stronger. So yeah, my advice would be that. And I did study a little bit in India as well back in 2022, and I know how important it is, for the practices there. So it's quite interesting, how many different cultures, everyone has their own kind of like way and practice, and it's yours, it's your own. I have a structure that I do give to my clients to follow, but then I always say, it's up to you. I don't give like long, like 1 hour meditations, because people, they've got lives and jobs and kids, and you want to kind of like keep it short and sweet. But if you want to spend more time on it, you can as well. For me, it's really important to explain consistency and being in a space of surrender, because alignment lies between surrendering to the divine will of the universe and having some structure and discipline. If you find your balance within that, then you can really start co-creating your reality.
Wow. I mean, it really, it again, I could swear that you're reiterating things that are very much the foundation of how I share information, because it's really important that you have a method, a cultivating practice, and that comes from the direct source of your spiritual alignment. And by some people would say, use the word honoring, respecting, cultivating these things, they become more and more evident, and through that mastery, it becomes more and more concentrated. So you get this palpable sort of state that is second to none and can be recognized by you. It's not like a fleeting moment, sort of a glimpse of what might be. It's something that's foundational. How long does it normally take for someone, when you give them their guidance, to get sink their teeth into a regular sort of like thing?
It depends. I mean, I have people that within a week, they already like their life completely shifts. And then I have people who take a little bit longer. So it really depends. So because I offer different types of energy work, like I do courses like 6 weeks and 6 months and whatnot, based also on how much time they invest with me and how much, they want to be followed and whatnot. Obviously, if you see me more and I give you more stuff to do, it's going to be quicker. But if you see me like every now and then sporadically, it might take more time. So it really depends on the individual. But I mean, from what I understand, like, yeah, structure, discipline, like it helps everyone. Like there's no one that I've worked with, and I've worked with like tens of thousands of people. There is no one that has not benefited in some way from having some sort of spiritual practice or structure, whatever that means for them. It could be something as easy as journaling for 10 minutes in your diary and writing down your day. Do you know what I mean? All of that brings you back to yourself. It brings you back to your grounding. And only when we are grounded, present, and embodied, we are able to be in a space where we can receive messages and we can understand them and then make the choice that puts us in the highest alignment. If we're too busy worrying about the past or the future, we're going to miss it. We're not going to see the signs. We're not going to see the guides communicating. We're not going to understand and know what direction we need to go to co-create our reality.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you're using grids. Your highest number is 3, and is that the number that you love to work with? Is that something that's
I
very...
work with 3, 6, and 9.
Oh, okay. They're magical numbers. We sort of pretty much stay in the 9, which is the highest number within Taoism, and it sort of transmutes in so many different ways, and it always ends up back at 9. So bizarre. It's like, how is that possible? Well, just like how the 3, 6, and 9s work for you, it's like, how does that always work out that way? It's part of that resonance, right? And so when you add the 3, 6, and 9s, are they integrated with just expressions of your daily activities where you notice it, or specifically within the grids, you're using this stuff, and then that's sort of correlated with geometry? Do you use specific geometry that you like to use?
Yeah, so with grid work, I actually work with 4s, because I work with the 4 pillars, the 4 elements, and the 4 archangelics. Sometimes with 6, because I've got the 4 and then above and below. So gridding is a little bit different, but on my day to day, yes, I will work with 3, 6, and 9. It's funny because like if I need to buy something, like and I need more than one, I'll buy 3. And then, if I need to choose between 2 things, like, and then the one adds up to like 9 and the other one doesn't, then I'll choose that one of the same thing. Do you know what I mean? And then kind of like when I see like numbers and time and things like that, so I'll set my alarm that it adds to like 3, 6, or 9. So I guess it's like kind of like small things that in the years you get used to, and they just become part of your daily practice in life. And I think it's important for people to understand that like it's your experience, because this is a question that I get a lot, like, oh, what does 111 mean, 222, 333, 444? It doesn't really matter what it means. You can add a significance to it if you want to, or also just allow it for what it is, a synchronicity, which means that you're in the right direction. What I've noticed is when I see a synchronistic number, or when I see like, a 111 or 222 or 333 or whatever, I will align with the frequency of my thought, and then I'll know, oh, okay, that's a good thing, or I shouldn't be doing that, or that's a direction where I need to go down. So it all comes down and back to knowing yourself, because you're the only one who can actually interpret it. Your experience externally is manifested from what's going on internally. So you already have all the answers, so it's just kind of fun to play, the number game and whatnot. But yeah, in the end, it's up to the individual's experience.
Yeah, I would agree 1,000,000%. Now, normally, in a clear sense sort of setting, most of the time, how I train people to see things is with their eyes open, and everything comes in information, numbers, auras, colors, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that you specifically focus on, or is it more a peripheral sort of thing, or do you dive deep into that sort of like expansion of your clear sense?
Yeah, so I teach all the clairs, so whatever people are more aligned with.
Mm.
Everyone wants to see, so I teach more clairvoyance. So I've got like a third eye masterclass that I do, a channeling masterclass. I teach specific exercises, but for me, what I want everyone to start operating from is claircognizance, which is just the innate knowing. So they don't need to rely on the clear senses. They just know. So they're in a space where they have claircognizance. So that's where I aim to actually like take my clients and the people that come to me. But for sure, I teach like also like how to see auras, and how to activate. So I've also got a workshop that works on activating. So for me, it's different when there's vision and psychic vision. So vision is through here, and then you'll have your third eye and your psychic vision, which is through here. So yeah, there's different things. So you can learn how to see through the construct, into the quantum realm. So through the layers of the multidimensionality that we are operating from. And you can actually see that with your bare eyes, if you learn how to tune in. So that's also something that I teach. But yeah, again, everyone has their own experience and their own understanding. Some people come to me and they're really struggling with clairaudience, like they're hearing so many things and they don't know how to stop, and they don't know how to embody it and whatnot. So then whatever is needed, I work organically with anyone who comes to me.
Fantastic. And so when you're dealing with sort of like someone who is experiencing, or what they would perceive as sort of like, I guess, a psychic attack, what would you suggest is the best course of action? Because I mean, this is their simulation of their reality. I always remind people this is you're calibrating to what you're experiencing, and that's sort of like the evidence-based sort of stuff. Do you have a sort of method that would be appropriate for something like that?
Yeah, well, I generally tell them that these things have the power that you give them. So if you're giving it power, it's gonna have power over you, and if you don't, then it won't. Like in my own experience, I know these things, like they're very real, like they're real. Does you know what I mean? I actually had a very intense experience back in, I think it was 2019, where I was that was really close to me involved with the black magic witch doctor, African magic. So very, very, very like blood sacrifice sort of magic. And I learned through my own experience that really only has the power that you give to it. Once you take your attention away and you take your power away, sometimes it can be a little bit different because there is pre-contracted experiences that people need to go through. But also, again, at the same time, it doesn't have to be repetitive. Okay, it's once you've learned the experience, okay, goodbye, move on, navigate into something else. I will generally give a standard shielding methodology, and I do explain shield out of love, not out of fear, work with the Merkaba, and the archangelics. So I do give tools because I think it's important to kind of like have those and know those as well. But in the end, as we said, it is a creation of your own reality and what's going on within you. If you think that your mother-in-law is sending you bad juju, then maybe stop thinking that and give your attention to something else and watch how that goes away, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with you. You mentioned the Merkaba. So is this the energetic construct that you sort of focus on when you're cultivating, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, my Merkaba activated a few years ago. When your Merkaba activates, you are able to actually do quite a lot. You're able to navigate even through different universes. So it's a very, very versatile tool. I work with the Merkaba, as in the shielding that I give to people is actually, from the Merkaba, from the third eye, pulling it down into Gaia, anchoring into the core, pulling up, making a shield of the 12th dimension, and then anchoring up into Andromeda. So they are protected on all 12 levels and dimensions. Everyone can do this. Not necessarily everyone can navigate and travel with their Merkaba, because there needs to be a certain degree of heart opening and embodiment present within the chakra system. I say the chakra system because we are moving into crystalline structure. So for me, the chakra system is outdated. Like, I don't really operate from the chakra system anymore. And that's where we're heading as a collective. We're heading, into crystalline and plasmic structure. But there needs to be a certain degree of integration and anchoring within the light body, within the system, for the Merkaba to be activated. So in my own practice, yes, I work with the Merkaba, not necessarily on an individual level with all of my clients.
And so I know we've got you for a few more minutes here, maybe a few seconds. Hopefully you don't. But just in case you do, I want to just ask you, what's the construct of where things are right now in relation to the resonance of the earth? I have my own teachers, and they're very clear that the it's unfortunately going to be non-climatic, sort of like ending to this year, even though people want death and destruction, and more people like yourself and myself that are giving these types of messages of awakening. It changes people's perception of their viewpoint of reality. Do you have sort of an idea of where things are going from your teachers?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say, if you want me to, I can do a light language transmission. If you would like me to.
Yeah. I don't. You see, I'm in this, and there's one thing I can't stand is when people just go, "Show me monkey in a grinder, do this now," and I've got a lot of friends that are channelers, and I've accumulated a huge community, and it's like it's always the fact, and some of them are a little bit more sensitive than others, but I do appreciate it. You sharing this with the audience, because I'll be quiet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course. No, I'll answer your question first. So for me, like, I really tend to, okay, so as you know, when you kind of like hold a collective voice, it's always really important to be in a space of neutrality and balance. That's what I find, because anything that you say can cause a rippling effect and create, so for me, I try to stay in a space of non-attachment. I do see for the next few years, perhaps kind of like a financial redistribution. I do think we've entered the lower tiers of fourth dimensional positively polarized earth, which means we are in the right track. I mean, I only feel positive and beautiful things when I tune into the future of the earth and humanity. Like, that's how I see it. Like, I know that there's a lot of people preaching, like, solar flares and tragedy and whatnot. I do think that obviously Gaia herself is clearing her own karma and her own cycle. So there will be, volcanoes and earthquakes and things like that. But I mean, nothing that hasn't happened before. on earth. Do you know what I mean? So for me, my reality and where I want to be and where I, want to navigate and operate from, I see a lot of love. I see a lot of positivity. I see a lot of, this very big redistribution of people having access to water, to electricity, to food, to shelter, to clothes, communities building, people coming together, and also a healthy integration within the technology. We are in the middle of a technological revolution as well. We are clearing Atlantean karmic timelines at this moment in time. And this is why a lot of people are also scared of the technology and the AI. Our role right now is to integrate that in a healthy way. So it's not very productive to the human evolution if people just say, oh, I never want to use technology again. Get it away from me. Let me run away from it. You can, it's your choice. You're a free sovereign being. However, from my experience and from my understandings, and from what I've channeled from ancient Atlantis and Lemuria to an extent as well, even though they were more, it was more like the earth-based and the nature-based, we are here to clear that, and we are clearing it. So that's kind of like where I see us going.
Wow, that's amazing. Whew. And you haven't even started yet. Woo. Yes, no, I really appreciate that insight, because it's refreshing. And I always remind people to your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And as you start to calibrate yourself, as you put it, and you're able to maintain a resonance that continues to open this consciousness, you will find that truth, and it will come from here. I love the way you share it. It's like opening the heart. There's nothing more powerful than that, and that center of the center of the center of all things. And wow, I'm just really grateful for that refreshing insight, because there are many people that want to stay within this what I call low watt fear-based stuff, and it has a rippling effect on everyone. And you can really, like people like yourself and myself, what we say can have a huge effect on someone on 6 degrees of separation. It ripples through the whole universe. So when you share this information, it's always good to find that attunement. And I personally resonate with what you're saying, and I know it to be true from my truth, that's the truth. And that's where other people develop their skills to get their own truth and their own realization from being present within this sort of conversation and resonance. So very grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so
I can.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would. Hey, look, I ain't gonna say no. Hell no. Everyone, buckle up a little bit. Yeah.
Start by closing your eyes and anchoring into the body as you find your comfortable breathing rhythm. With every inhale, you breathe in light, and with every exhale, you release all that doesn't serve you anymore. As you relax your body, you relax your system, relax your energy field. You stay in a space of openness, in a space of oneness. And as we call on the Archangelic Collective, Michael to the south, Uriel to the north, Raphael to the east, and Gabriel to the west, we call on Archangel Metatron with his blue cloak of protection from above, and Sandalphon to seal the grid from below. Call on our higher selves or spirit guides, anyone else who wishes to be present for the greatest and highest good. You're welcome in the space at this moment in time. Opening systems, opening expanding, more light, divine rays coming in, anchoring, tuning, expanding into more light. Opening. Okay, this is going to be an emotional release through the solar plexus, clearing, releasing, opening, letting go of all that does not serve you, clearing, releasing into more light, divine rays, anchoring, Anchoring, upgrading blueprint structures, anchoring, attuning, expanding structures, expanding systems. Yat kurra se ta 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 ta. Yat oro isatara ishira codes of memory coming in, anchoring, activating, opening, attuning, rasieto kua ishira yatakrate korotre atekano kuma ishira isera set kua ishira tetara, letting go, opening, expanding, aura rays, rainbow rays into heart, opening, green rays coming in, anchoring, angelic codes coming in, attuning, rasieta quieto kumare aishetaka, iase ratria tekaro ora ishie, tiana re ate a rosieta tietkana ya shin mayera tret kumra sera takatre ate te ero te koro ishi traishe taka kaka create kona ya te kaishera taka tiata re atreo kora isate aishe taka re haishe te kose sarate taratara trena ia re areo koro isera anchoring more light, attuning, clean, releasing peripheral, clearing, releasing, opening codes of patience, knowledge, compassion, expansion, expanding, attuning, grounding, anchoring, grounding. Closing ceiling, attuning, sealing peripheral, sealing yeto koratri sayataka, shkurra ishena yataka, ia ishero ratriatia, shkurra yaseatek ano kumrasiataka, shkarya shia sieta ratu koraisia, as you enter and ground back into the body, can come back to the physical vessel, finding your stillness, finding your presence, coming back to the now, and whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Well, you want an express lane through the car wash of the realization of something profound. It's really interesting. Your transformation, the way that you share this, is really, it's sort of like instantly sort of dissolves many different things that people would find, obstructions, and it's like a massive clearance and resetting and healing from everything I know within this physical realm and many lifetimes beforehand. But it's very, very powerful. I'm super buzzing and grounded and expansive and high as a kite, which is I enjoy that. My path all day long is to get as high as possible. And it's just like you just handed me a spiritual doobie, and I'm very grateful. Woof. Wow.
Thank you.
That's really something else. That's really magical what you're doing. And I can't thank you enough for you sharing your time with us today. And that is captured in the ether of digital recording that anyone can access at any point. That's so powerful. So, in closing, I want to just first of all thank you so much for sharing your time with myself and the audience. And I want to ask you a question. What is your definition of consciousness?
Oof, well, they're just sending me yourself. That's literally just the word they sent me, yourself. Like,
amazing. Amazing. So powerful. My goodness, I am so full. I'm so there's so much energy going on here, but you already know that. And I kind of knew I was going to get a little crash course there. I was, praying that I was going to get a little doobie, and I'm very grateful that you shared it. I'm going to put all your social media under this podcast, and after it hits YouTube, it goes in across all 20 platforms about a week or two after that. And I want you to just share with the audience. I want them to go to your social. What's the easiest way to find you? Go to your website, make a booking. I know that I've seen in the past you're always booked out. Hopefully, I mean, are people going to get depressed? They're going to go there and it's like, oh, it's a year waiting list.
Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's like 6 weeks, more or less, generally between 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes it's a month, like it depends, but generally it's an average between 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, just on my website, althealucrezia.com, or from my Instagram, Light Codes by ALA, and then there's my link tree. And then through that, you can get to everywhere. I'm currently in the process of hosting a retreat in Costa Rica in November. I've got a few slots left for that. That's going to be really powerful. It's 6 days and 5 nights, and every single day there'll be channeling. We'll be going to like waterfalls. We'll be working with cacao, with hape and some plant medicines, and it's going to be I'll be bringing in the 4 elements, and I'll be doing dragon body activation, so I'll be working with the dragons a lot there as well. So that's kind of like one of the new things that I've been offering. Well, I've had it on for like a few months, but that's what I've got coming up. And then I'm going to be in LA and San Diego in June and July. So if anyone who's listening to this is there and around and they want a one-on-one, contact me through my website or through my Instagram. And then all my stuff is on my website. I've got a few different workshops. There's maybe like 10 to 12 workshops, and then I do my one-on-one activations, which would be my light language. And then I've got my programs, my 6-month programs. And then possibly in August, I might be doing an abundance mentorship, manifestation abundance mentorship, which is what I did last year as well. But we'll see, depends on my travels, because I might end up having to travel then as well. But I'm always open. I mean, there is a bit of waiting time, but if you want to book a session, like, you'll have a session with me. You won't have to wait a year.
Well, it happens. People get a really, it's always the case. I mean, I have people that travel from around the world to come and train here at my Taoist temple. So I understand the magnitude of what it means when you have something to offer that is transformative, just like the very gift that you shared with us right now. So I want to thank you for all that you do and all that you shared today and your precious time. I'm really grateful that you were able to share it with us and the audience. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us. I want to thank the universe for bringing us together. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.